Hi, I'm Christina Rodenbeck. I'm here with my friend Sally Kirkman. Hello, Sally.
Hello, Christina.
And we are here to investigate a new question, which is why do the French celebrate the 14th of July as their national day? And the short answer to that is that it is Bastille Day, the day that the French prison was stormed by the people of Paris and the prisoners were released. Of course, the kind of irony was that there were actually only 7 prisoners in there, and one of them was the Marquis de Sade. But that is the day that is celebrated. And actually, the chart for that day, and there are other days that you could choose, right, to celebrate as the national day for during the French Revolution. I mean, it might have been the March on Versailles, or it might have been when the king was beheaded, or the beginning of, various other days that could have been chosen. But this is the day that's chosen by the French nation to celebrate the revolution and the new beginning of the new France and the end of the monarchy. In fact, the monarch was around for a few more years, wasn't he? But I'll get the chart up and you'll see why. Yeah, it wanted to hide. So Scorpio rising, storming of the Bastille. So the Bastille is a prison. And I mean, it's a remarkable chart, isn't it? And incredibly resonant with today, with these times that we're in now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the fact that we actually have an exact time for this as well. I mean, this was apparently when the sort of bridge went down and the storming took place. So, because very often with these event charts, you don't get so kind of a close time. But yeah, I mean, the big one is the triple conjunction, isn't it, in Leo of Jupiter, Venus, Uranus in Leo, quite high up, elevated up in the chart, not on the midheaven, but in the 9th house, and what those planets stand for and how that links to a very important motto. Do you want to reveal?
Well, it's liberté, égalité, fraternité, liberty, equality, fraternity, brotherhood. And we do have complaints that it's not sisterhood as well. And so did women in France at the time, were pretty annoyed.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that is the slogan. It was a slogan that was bandied around during the French Revolution. And I think Robespierre popularized the phrase. And then it became the actual French national motto much later in the 19th century, but it was a big phrase. And why do we think this is amazing for this triple conjunction in Leo? Leo is the royal sign, right? So it's raising these concepts up. So I would say that equality is that the liberty, equality, and fraternity are those 3 planets, Uranus, Venus, and Jupiter, are kind of those concepts all bundled together. You could separate them and say liberty is very Jupiterian, but it's also quite Uranian as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Equality is about Venus. It's about harmony and balance, but so is Uranus, is about equality too.
Yeah.
And fraternity, I think, is also quite a Venusian, Uranian thing. And of course, Uranus is the planet of revolution, and had only just been discovered, hadn't it? When was it discovered?
It was discovered in 1781. So, and at the time there was the Declaration of Independence in the States. There's the French Revolution that goes on. So these sort of big events that when you get a planet being discovered, that rise to the symbolism, the meanings, the significance of the planet. So therefore, Uranus has always been the planet linked to radical behavior, revolution. And the people actually through it's also linked to the people through its rulership of Aquarius, the collective society. So yeah, very much a symbol of revolution, Uranus, and great to see it so kind of prominent in this chart.
And actually, what's really, and as you say, through its link to Aquarius, which is the sign that we associate with the common person, with the populace, with the people, what's in Aquarius at this time? It's Pluto. which is at 18 degrees of Aquarius. So it's been there for quite a few years, for this decade. Of course, it actually went into Pluto just after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I think it's 1777. So it's also part of the American Revolution. So Pluto goes into Aquarius. We have this big revolution going on in the States. We have a revolution that sweeps through France. But it doesn't actually hit until this Bastille Day. And I find that really interesting. So Uranus is right at the beginning of Leo. It's at 4 degrees of Leo, but it's going to spend the next 7 years in Leo opposing that Pluto in Aquarius. So you're going to have a Uranus-Pluto opposition in operation across the signs of Leo, which is royalty, and Aquarius, which is the common man.
Yeah.
Got that opposition in place for a long time. Yeah. And of course, what happened during the French Revolution is everything turned upside down, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And it was, there was a reign of terror afterwards, wasn't there? Let's not, it was a very disabling time. And I suppose maybe that's shown by the ruler of this chart is that it's Mars. It's Mars in Gemini in the 8th house. So even though this was this incredible moment, and you can see the power of that liberté, fraternité, égalité, there was a lot of violence that continued over incredible violence over the next while. Uranus continued to move through Leo, actually, for that amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, the reign of the terror doesn't even start for a while. I think it finished in about 1794. And this is a kind of, it's not really discussed that much, but it's almost a genocidal, the streets were running with blood. There's, there are accounts of like 3,000 people being executed in a day in the Vendée. It's really horrifying. And it's like something is unleashed at the storming of the Bastille. And I'm looking at that North Node in Scorpio as well with that. So the North Node is also ruled by Mars, which is in the 8th, as you said. And a lot of this was encouraged. Mars is in Gemini, which is the sign of words, right? And a lot of this was about the words and the ideas that have been come out of the Enlightenment. And Paris had hundreds of newspapers at this point, which were all closed down during the terror, when they started shutting things down. But there were hundreds of ideas rushing around that fueled this rage, actually. In fact, there was one party called the Enragés, the enraged ones. But I would also say that, the traditional ruler is Mars in Gemini, and the modern ruler of that ascendant and of that North Node is Pluto, which is the people. So its power comes to the people, and because Pluto is the planet of power, right? And it's in the sign of the people. So the power has come to the people.
And just to say that this was the last time that Pluto was in Aquarius, isn't it, during this period, because it has such a slow orbit. And we're now again, Pluto moving into Aquarius. So kind of a resonance may be going on there. So yeah, and we are again talking about Pluto moving into Aquarius. Will this be power to the people? Because we have this massive wealth gap at the moment. So something needs to shift and change. Like probably, back in the day, I mean, there's this triple conjunction that we see was in Leo, and it was the monarchy were awful at that time, weren't they? I mean, they really did need taking to account, during the French Revolution. That was what it was about. The divide again was there was so much poverty around that time, and the leaders were kind of lauding it, weren't they?
The whole thing was out of control. I mean, it's complex. But yes, I mean, the gap between the rich and the poor was crazy wide, but I think it's actually wider now in the world. Yeah. And we're going from, if you think about it another way, Pluto had been in Capricorn for a long time, which is what we have just experienced. Pluto and Capricorn were still there. And then it went into Aquarius and these revolutions started. So it's very resonant with now. The other thing that's resonant with now, just on a much smaller scale, is simply that Saturn was in Pisces during this, which again, it feels like the end. Some things are coming to an end. Certain regimes are coming to an end, you know. So just like today, they had Saturn in Pisces and Pluto in Aquarius, but in our times, we've got Jupiter coming into Taurus, not Leo. And I find that quite interesting. Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. So they are in the same sign, just like it was back then. It's also another fixed sign.
Yeah.
But it's making a hard aspect to that Pluto. And what I would associate Taurus with is not kings, but with bankers.
Yes.
Big money.
Yes.
So we've got this clash between the people again and big money. So if we were going to talk about the storming, it may not be the storming of the Bastille this time. It may be the storming of Goldman Sachs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting how this chart is kind of resonating with what's happening today. And just to say, I mean, one of the things I noticed when Pluto moved into Aquarius, starting this, which was March the 23rd this year, again, one of the countries that was rioting at the time was France again, wasn't it? With their spirit of rebellion and revolution that feels very sort of embedded in the psyche of the French.
Well, I mean, it's important to remember. That's so true. And then, of course, you think of the French. Yeah, weren't they rebelling the year before and the year before that? Didn't they have riots on the street? Weren't they burning things? And it's actually true. If you look, so the storming of the Bastille happens. Then they have, then it takes a long time for things to work out, because then they go in. They have to get rid of the royal family. That's not for a few years, actually, while they're deciding what to do with them. And then they have the Reign of Terror, and there's just mass genocide, murder of all kinds of people. Then eventually you end up with Napoleon, who, there are some good things about Napoleon's rule, the Napoleonic Code and other stuff, and there's some great things that come out of the revolution, as the organization of France is completely changed, and they make sense of the place. But then they have the revolutions in 1848, and then the Paris Commune in the 1870s. Is it the 1870s? Yeah, the Paris Commune. Anyway, later in the 19th century, and they're invaded by Prussia. There's a lot to get through, and of course, there's the famous 1968 event, the events of 1968, when Paris completely rises up again. While de Gaulle's in power, and people, that's an incredibly important part of the French psyche, is this rebellion.
Yeah, and we see it. I mean, you can see it in this chart. I mean, there's that triple conjunction has a lot of power and what's the word? Kind of good stuff in it. It's kind of, we believe in these values, liberté, fraternité, equality, and we will rise up to kind of take hold of that, to make that ours. So you can see the real kind of strength and power in it. I mean, there's, the other stuff that goes on behind and after, but I just love that triple conjunction that just is so strong on this day, and absolutely right to be celebrating that again and again and again on the 14th of July, and having that as their day of their special day of independence.
So, Sally, will you be wearing a little red Liberty cap on the 14 Juillet and doing your fireworks? I like it too. I mean, I like it and I don't like it. I mean, the ideas are wonderful, but the actual what happened was not so great. Okay. I always think of the great, the French feminist, she's an early feminist, Olympe de Gouges, who wrote a Declaration of the Rights of Women. She's a very well-known playwright at the time, and said, women should have equal rights too. Oh, and she was a big abolitionist as well before the revolution. And, she'd been a supporter of the revolution, sent to the guillotine, chunk,
Yeah.
Right. So that's why they celebrate this Bastille Day as the French Day of Independence, because it's jolly there. Jupiter, Uranus, Venus conjunction in Leo.
Yeah.
Those are the values that are celebrated.
Absolutely.
Equality, fraternity.
Yep. And on that note, we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.